Welcome to your journey of healing with the Healing Podcast, hosted by licensed clinician Monique Owe and co-host Dr. Amber Moan.
Thank you for tuning into the Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Monique Owe, and I am joined by a lovely guest co-host today, and that is Mrs. Dana Gamble. So, Dana, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, first, I just want to say I am so excited to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah.
And we're going to have so much fun and learn some new information, hopefully. But I want to say that, first and foremost, I am a wife of 13 years to my husband, John Gamble. And out of that, we conceived 2 children. My oldest son is Justin. He's 12. Going to 7th grade. Y'all pray for me.
Oh.
And then my youngest baby is Jace, and he's 6 going to 1st grade. So that's a little bit more about my personal life. Professionally, I am a school counselor. This is my 14th year.
Congratulations
yes,
on that.
Time flies. 14th year as a school counselor, but I'm also a licensed professional counselor where I do community mental health as well. And so I'm just excited. This is my first time doing a podcast, so should be interesting. And just have worked with adolescents of all ages. As Monique was asking me before, she's like, what age range? I've done all of them.
That's good.
Elementary, middle school, high school, alternative school. I've done it all. So, yeah. So I'm excited to be here and just enlighten you all a little bit more about mental health in schools, particularly with COVID.
Well, I thank you, Dana, for being here and for agreeing to be a guest on the Healing Podcast. And, congratulations on 13-year marriage.
Yes,
and the 2 children, one who's not so much a child anymore, right?
All.
And even your youngest, oh my God, you said already 7?
He's 6.
6 already.
Yes,
I feel like that was just yesterday.
I know.
So that is wonderful. And so I feel like, so Dana and I went to the same college.
Yep. Sure.
Shout out to Clark Atlanta University.
Yes, yeah.
And it almost feels like it was yesterday.
I know.
But I know it wasn't yesterday.
Together, right?
I know it wasn't. No, it was a while ago.
Ago.
But I'm happy to have yet another professional that is in the mental health field with me today. And we are just going to go ahead and jump into the topic at hand. And today's topic is about mental health in the schools, basically the impact that COVID has had on the children. So what I do, I'm going to be asking Dana some questions. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. So, Dana, if I can ask you, how long, and you may have said this in the intro, but if you could say it again, how long have you been in the school system or as a school counselor?
Yes, so I've been in the school system. Yes, this is going on year 14 for me as a school counselor. And as I stated before, I've had the opportunity to work with all ages from my school now is pre-K to 5th grade. But I have worked with high school age, middle school aged, and like I said, even alternative. And at the alternative school, that was 6th to 12th grade. So yes, I've had the unique opportunity of working with all age groups, which I'm very, very grateful for. So.
Well, that's great. Thank you for the work that you do, because I know working in the school system itself can come with its own challenges.
Absolutely.
But now, and you being a school counselor, that can bring on a whole other set of challenges.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you're always in the school system, not just dealing with the child, but you also got to deal with the parents.
For sure.
Right? And so
right.
I can imagine with the counseling part, it's just something. So thank you for being that support for the children.
Oh, yeah.
So what I do want to say, counseling has its challenges. And of course, being a school counselor has its own challenges on top of that. Mm-hmm. So can you tell our listeners what have been some of those general challenges or what they've been so far?
Well, the first thing that I want to make sure that I address, oftentimes when I say I'm an elementary school counselor, people are like, what could possibly be wrong? I know, and I'm sure you probably hear this.
A lot.
Yes, even in the mental health sector. But what possibly could be some challenges that they face? And so I first want to clear up that disparity, right? Because oftentimes people are like, what could you be doing as an elementary school counselor? It's a lot. First thing, we're not back in our day when we were growing up, these kids are exposed to so much more than what we were. So I want to first break that myth of, babies, oh, they're okay. What challenges can they face? They face some of the same issues as us adults: depression, anxiety, PTSD, ADHD is a big, thing. So they face so much more than what we are often, especially if you're not in the profession, you may automatically assume that, they're babies, they're in kindergarten, what could they possibly... It's a lot. It's a lot. And like I said, they're exposed to much more with social media and technology at their fingertips.
Yes.
That's a gift and a curse, as we all know. So, that is one of the biggest challenges or myths that I wanted to dispel. But another challenge in counseling, and we'll probably get to this a little bit later, just in the profession alone as a school counselor, and I'm fortunate because, as I've mentioned to you all before, I'm licensed as well. So I have had opportunities to be in the mental health aspect of the profession. But unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues are not.
Really?
They're not licensed as mental health professionals. Now, they're two separate things. School counseling, you follow a school counseling track, you do your interim in a school setting. So you don't really get much of the therapeutic aspect like you do. That, I think, is also kind of, and again, we'll probably go deeper into this, kind of been a little bit of a thorn in our side. And I'm going to say just, to put myself in that same box. But again, I've had more experience in the mental health sector, so not so much for me, but for other professionals where we're dealing with more mental health issues with children, is a little bit out of their scope.
Right.
It's a little bit out of their scope. So I think that has been a big challenge where we need to kind of give more or offer more trainings for school counselors, more therapeutic training, as I was saying, to kind of work with that aspect, because we're seeing more and more mental health issues in schools. Yeah. And unfortunately, there are a lot of counselors that are unable to deal with it. And we're also, but even for myself, we're in a school setting. So our push is academic. How can we get this child to work through this issue now so that they can get back to class and be, and learn, which is the ultimate goal. Yeah. But it's deeper than that sometimes. Sometimes it's not just a Band-Aid or one-time situation and then, brief solution focus. Right. It's really not that brief sometimes. Sometimes it takes several times. And so in that instance, we have to refer out and things of that nature. Yeah. But it's still dealing with that when you see it. And how do I deal with someone who's in the middle of a crisis at school or, so I think that disparity is starting to kind of rear its ugly head. Really? Yeah. Really? Well, we definitely need to kind of have a little bit more training for the mental health aspect in schools.
Well, I can definitely understand that those are some challenges. I did not know that some school counselors were not actually licensed professionals.
Yeah, you don't have to be. It's just Georgia. It's just certification.
But also, just like you said, the things that the children now are exposed to that maybe we weren't exposed to. Yes. Just the social media and the whole internet aspect of it. Things are just at the fingertips of children nowadays versus when we were in school in that age bracket. I mean, we didn't have the internet. I don't know. We definitely didn't have social media.
Right. Exactly.
So you didn't have access to things like you do now, and the exposure I think that children may have now. So I can imagine there comes with that a whole array of things. What I do want to say is, if I could ask about that, because of the challenges that you face already, what you said, more depression, anxiety, other challenges in the school, you got to get them back good to go back to school, to the classroom. With COVID and the pandemic, how do you think that has affected you as a professional or being a school counselor?
For me, I would definitely say, okay, so before, myself and the other counselor that I work with, shout out to Miss Michelle DeShields, my other counselor that I work with, but we're always present. We try to make sure that when we're on duty or we're seeing the children, we're there, we're available, we're present, they see us, right? But I think we have to be even more vigilant and keeping a close eye on students, because people suffer in silence all the time, even children, right? So I think that is being more vigilant with our children and kind of looking for those signs. I know another thing is kind of knowing a little bit more about the family history. So before, you may have a student come into your office and you're talking to them or whatever. But now you might need to know, and even then, but even more so now because people are facing so many more challenges as a result of COVID. You might need to, reach back and, okay, we need to find out what's also going on at home. What are some things, how has this affected the home environment? What's going on? So I think as a school counselor, and again, talking about the disparity and how we really don't receive much training on the job in the mental health aspect to work with children. Again, I'm in a fortunate position, but there's not much training. And I think there is a shift, for sure, a shift that's happening, but that has also created a challenge for a lot of counselors that, I collaborate with often and work with. How do I deal with this? Like I said before, how do I deal with this student in the middle of a crisis? So making sure that family link is there can be a challenge, but it's very, very important, especially, like I said, with COVID, even pre-COVID, but even with COVID, because a lot of times family dynamics, of course, affects, children. Although we may not think so, it does. So that and dealing with the mental health piece has definitely been more of the challenges for me as a school counselor.
Okay. So I would say, I think with COVID itself, what I can think of, some of the challenges were one, just people having to adjust how to teach, one. So I would assume the same thing with counseling because the kids were in school, they were not in school. They had to go virtual, they had to come back. Maybe one day you have somebody's been exposed, so you got to shut down the school again. So I would imagine those itself as a professional, you're trying to navigate this new, I guess if you want to say post-COVID world. I don't even know if it's post-COVID all the way yet. But it was different. I think it just was sudden. Right. It was kind of like one day to the next. Like, okay, we're in school, we're doing what we're doing. Then boom, it's shut down. Well, how do you deal with this person? You knew you had a child that you were counseling already. Right. Now it's shut down. How do you help that person who was in crisis that you knew needed a resource that you were working on, but now you can't reach them because now they can't come to school? I don't think you weren't doing any in-home sessions, were you? Okay. So I can imagine even that must have been a challenge as a professional to have to still readjust, right, with that child, but you couldn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, definitely. And so we can just be clear. What specific age range do you work with in the school?
Yes, currently I'm working with elementary age. So my school is from pre-K through 5th grade. Okay. Currently, that's the age range that I work with. And in particular, though, because like I said, I do have a co-counselor. So she works more with the older grades, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And then I'm with pre-K through 2nd. So I work with the smaller children in the building.
Okay. So thank you. So that's about pre-K 4-year-olds to about 11-year-olds in your school? Yes. Would you say? 11? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. About 14. All right. So we definitely know how the COVID pandemic has affected adults. A lot of things had to be changed. Some people lost their job, all this stuff, yeah. Right? But however, how do you think the pandemic itself has affected the children?
Yeah. And so upon doing a little bit of research, even CDC has indicated that children ages 5 through 11, there was an increase of about 24% from 2019 in emergency mental health services. Wow. Okay, so that's the age range that we're talking about, wow. Right? So that in itself is big. 24% is rather large, right? Yeah. So again, a lot of children that through the COVID pandemic, and like we were talking about, everything has a ripple effect. So if families lose their job, now we're talking about possible homelessness or relocating. Right. The social isolation was really, really big for a lot of children. And then on the flip side, children with ADHD who were not able to go out, and depression, anxiety, again, PTSD, because there was a huge increase of domestic violence, in homes. Yeah. So think about the after effects of, children being at home with their parents, who a parent might have lost a job. Now mom and dad are fighting and arguing as a result. So now you have the ramifications of that. Yeah. So, I think we have to always look at the big picture. And I believe COVID affected children in so many ways, especially as far as mentally and socially. A lot of children have increased depression and anxiety. Because I know for me, and I'm an adult, but I had to cut the news off.
Oh, yeah, you got to do that.
I had to cut the news off because day after day after day, hearing about COVID, hearing about the amount of deaths, hearing about how rapid it spreads, hearing about the job loss, I myself was like, okay, you know what? I need to disconnect from the phones and the TV and because that anxiety and that anxiety transfers. You know, sometimes we think our situation is in isolation, but if I'm anxious and I have anxiety, you know, that transfers to my children.
Yeah.
You know, so I was very vigilant in making sure that, okay, Dana, keep yourself in check. You know, we adjust, we do the best that we know how to do, and try to keep things as normal in an abnormal situation as possible. But everybody didn't have that luxury or that, you know, that opportunity to do so, or the knowledge to know how. So I would say COVID has definitely caused an increase in, you know, mental health. And on the academic side, oh my goodness, so many children fell behind academically. That is the other piece, you know, in the academic sector that we were like, oh my goodness, you know.
Right.
Again, parents do the best that they know how, right? So I'm, you know, educated. I'm in the school system. I have resources. Yeah. So I'm at home. I'm able to still work with my kids. Or if I can't do it, I know someone to reach out to, right? But if you're not, if you don't have that, that creates a whole nother challenge. So there were children that were just home, you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe unsupervised or with the older sibling or not doing any work. And although, you know, the school system, we tried our best to give computers to children and things of that nature. But in my school, a whole nother aspect to that, I'm in the Clarkston community. So if anyone knows Clarkston, it's a resettlement community, right? So we get a lot of foreign refugees, people coming in from different countries to the United States. That's definitely
something,
So to just throw a computer in front of those children, imagine. Right. I don't even speak English. My parents don't speak English. What do I do?
Wow.
So it was, it was a lot of different challenges that children faced as a result, and just adjusting, like you had mentioned earlier. You know, that was a huge challenge too for some of our children. So
well, you saying that, you know, those are some of the things, you know, adults and maybe older children, high school age might be a little bit more resilient, right? Okay, this happened, it's upsetting, it's depressing, but I'm gonna get it together, I'm gonna be fine. A child who is elementary age, young, still trying to learn about life, they don't have that resiliency. They don't understand, why can't I go see my friend that I just used to see, right? How about the challenge of food? Some children get their only meal at school. So imagine now this child can't go to school. So where's the food? Not because the parents don't want to feed them, but they don't have enough money. The parents are relying on the school lunch to help at least give their child some nourishment, right? And then what you're saying, Dana, like the Clarkston area, for those who are not in Georgia, just imagine a community that just may have a lot of people that are not originally from this country, that are here, trying to live a life. But like you said, English is a second language. So they barely know it. And now you want them to read this curriculum to their child, right? Because I'm sure the school system did not translate everything.
On technology now, on their laptop that I might have never seen before. Don't even know how to operate.
Exactly. So I'm sure the school wasn't able to just, in that rapid turnaround time, get the resources to those children that they may have needed. So yes, I can see a child falling behind in that and just it really affecting them and their thriving. So
and I will say that, if I can only speak for DeKalb County Schools, which is where I do the school system that I work for, they did make sure that they were providing lunches. Parents could do drive-by.
That was good.
Down how to pick up lunch and, you know, food for the children. So I will say that, you know, they did try to make sure certain resources were in place for that. But, you know, it was still a huge adjustment.
You had to do a lot. I commend DeKalb and any other school system that did try to make the effort.
Which I believe most, you know, did do, because they understand the impact that it had on families.
Yeah, it did. It did. Some people don't think about that. Okay, so before we go into our second half of the podcast, I'm going to make a little quick segue here. And you guys know it. You guessed it. The situation. So, you know, today, you know, Dr. Moan is not here today, so you guys are going to hear me read the situation. Okay. Dear Healing Podcast, I feel like I let myself go, and I'm trying to find myself again. Over the past few years, I've had a lot to take place between my parents becoming ill and all that the pandemic brought on with work and other duties. I gained a few pounds. I had to downsize to a 1-bedroom apartment. I've had my own health challenges that have mainly come on due to stress. I am now at the point where I want to be me again. Me means a person that dresses up and goes out to a nice dinner every now and then, or doing regular mani-pedis again, buying some new clothes. I haven't bought an outfit in years. I'm trying new things and smiling more. I know this question may seem simple or basic for an adult, but my question is, how can I gradually get back into being me again? Well, first I want to thank the listener for writing in. Let me throw this to Dana. Dana, what would you say to this person?
Yes. Well, without knowing the full scope, I'm not going to, make any diagnoses or anything. Mm-hmm. But it could be a little bit of depression there. It could be. You've had a lot to go on, things that are changing. And just in the sake of transparency, I feel like that was sort of my situation.
That was you? Okay.
It was me. I had just had children. I was married. I was completely engrossed in that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I had lost myself, right? Yeah. And so it's almost like, for me, I'm going to speak for me, it was almost like a drug addict that hit like a rock bottom.
Wow.
That's the only thing that I can kind of compare it to. So I said, okay, what are some of the things that I have an issue with? And as the guest had mentioned, or the writer, I have to say, mentioned, challenges with your body and all that. Do something for you. Self-care is so, so, so important. As a parent, as a wife, as, whatever, you have to make sure that you take time for you, right? Because you cannot be the best you if you're depressed, you're anxious, you can't give the best to your children. You can't give the best to the people around you if you're not working on you constantly. So don't feel guilty. Take a moment, breathe, even if it's 5 minutes of meditation. I am trying to master that. This has been hard for me, but I really want to learn how to meditate. Working out has really changed my life, guys.
That's good.
I would say, if nothing else, get up and just go walk after dinner. Take your kids with you walking. These kids, they need to detach from the computers and all that as well. Yeah. And get out and get physical exercise. Yeah. That in itself, just fresh air, just creates a world of difference, So don't feel guilty about taking time for yourself. I would definitely say work out. You can even work out at home. Your diet. Okay. Diet helps you lose weight more so than working out, right? So checking how you're eating, being a little bit more mindful of what you're eating. It doesn't mean that you have to be like all the time on it, but most of the time try to eat healthy and what's good for your body. And again, my biggest thing is just make sure you take time for yourself. I know we always get wrapped up in work and being there for everyone else, and we lose ourselves. And I think that, again, that was a situation for myself. And then I was just like, okay, who is this person? I'm not liking this. Okay. Feeling overwhelmed and anxious. So make sure you take time for you. And if you're a spiritual person, I believe in prayer. Pray morning, pray at night. It's therapeutic for me to be connected to God. Again, that's if you're a spiritual person. But yeah, and seek therapy. Even if you're not suffering from mental illness, or it doesn't fall directly in line with that category. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to, right? Yep. A neutral person, outside of just family, or just a professional that can kind of guide you. So it's okay to seek therapy, even if you're not depressed, or not suffering with anxiety. Yep. It's okay. So I feel like reaching out to a professional is okay, even if, you're not in a state of crisis. So those are some of my suggestions.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Dana, for your feedback to our listener. And what I'll just add, just real quick, I think you want to know, how can you get back? I would say, well, don't feel like you got to do everything at once.
That is very true.
I would start small. You said you want to get back into mani-pedis and buying something for yourself. Well, I would recommend, schedule one thing this week, just one. Start with that. Whether you want to just go to the store and buy the outfit, let that be the one thing, or you want to start with the mani-pedi. But just start small, right? If it's the weight, that's the main concern. Then, as Dana mentioned, then, just one day this week at least, go out for a walk. Just a walk. You don't got to run.
Yep.
You don't got to do anything too physical.
Right, for sure.
Just take a nice walk, enjoy the air, enjoy nature, and just start there. So I think, how do you get started again? One thing at a time.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
I think the main thing that keeps us stuck is we just look at there's so much to do, and it's just one thing at a time. You know how a pile of junk gets cleaned up? You throw away one thing at a time, or you put away one thing at a time. Next thing you know, the pile is gone.
Yeah.
So I hope, and don't feel guilty about it.
Don't feel guilty about it.
And I think, Dana, if I could ask real quick, this listener has the ability to get back, right?
Absolutely.
Like you went through this, you got back, you feel, right?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Always keep hope. And like I said, I pray. But of course, and just like you said, I think that was great advice. Just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time, making small changes over time adds up, right?
Yep.
So that's definitely what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dana, for your feedback, and thank you for writing into the Healing Podcast. Remember, if you want to write in for the situation or share your situation, you can go ahead and email support@thehealingpodcast.com. Again, you can email support@thehealingpodcast.com, or you can go to thehealingpodcast.com and hit the contact tab. So just a moment, we'll be back with our episode. We just got to give a moment to our sponsors. So just bear with us. We'll be right back.
Are you someone who has been considering therapy? Perhaps someone else has told you that you need to talk to a therapist. Or maybe you're in a relationship and you want to discuss some challenges that you've been facing with your significant other. Maybe there's a communication issue, perhaps an incident of infidelity. Or maybe you just want to strengthen your relationship because you guys are thinking about taking another step. Maybe you're struggling with anxiety or depression, perhaps grief, life stressors, and you just want to share your thoughts with someone. Well, consider contacting Healing Expressions. Healing Expressions is a private practice located in the Atlanta, Georgia area. You will be given a session at an affordable price with a licensed therapist. If this resonates with you, consider going to healingexpressionsllc.com, reading about the practice, and hitting the contact tab to see if you can book a session. All right, thank you so much. And back to the Healing Podcast.
Okay, so thank you again for tuning into the Healing Podcast. So getting back into our second half of the episode, which is mental health in the schools, the impact that COVID has had. We mentioned some challenges. Dana mentioned the age range she works with, how the children have had to adjust, and the different things that may go on. If I can ask Dana, so what should adults or parents or even professionals prepare for or look out for with their children during these times? Like, what do they need to pay attention to?
So just for me, and I'm just speaking as a parent, it's so important to kind of stay connected. Again, we often have so much going on in our lives and, all of that we can kind of lose a connection. So definitely be vigilant. Stay connected with your child. I have a tendency to go on a little tangent, but I'm going to just kind of to give you this little backstory. So we were in a training, and actually this was a mental health training, so I will say that. We were in a training through my school system, and we were looking at this video. It was called First Aid Mental Health, so like emergency crisis situations, talking about some of the resources and things you can do for that. So I will say that was a great training. But yes, going back. So there was a guy that was on this video while we were in the training, and he suffered from depression. And on this one particular day, he woke up and he said, "Today is my last day on earth. I'm gonna kill myself." Okay. So woke up, he got dressed, his mom, he was, I guess, young adult, more so, not a child, but I still feel like the story is relevant. So he wakes up and his mom is talking to him or whatever. He goes out, he's walking, and people are saying hi or whatever, and this man decides to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Jumps by God's grace. I'm a God-fearing person, but by God's grace, he made it to tell his story.
Wow.
But he said the one thing that he was waiting on someone to ask him was, "How are you?" Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
The one thing that he was just waiting on someone to ask him, "How are you today? How is your..." Something so simple, he said probably would have prevented him, because he would have said, I'm feeling really depressed today. So I just, in that story, I was like, wow. So when I say be vigilant, it's also being intentional. Ask your kids, how are you feeling today? And really be open to listening to how they feel, validate their feelings. I have a son, like I said, 7th grade, y'all help me, because he is hormonal now, like you were just smiling at me 5 minutes ago, now you're angry, why, but he'll disclose to me all the time, Mom, he plays baseball, he loves the sport, he wants to do well. So like before a big tournament or a game, he'll say to me, Mom, I'm really nervous. What if I strike out? What if I, and I always, again, I go and I try to validate. You know what, Justin, you may strike out, but guess what? You've practiced. So I reassure him, you've practiced so hard. You've worked so hard. I'll tell him, even professionals strike out, right? It's okay. What do you do though? Make sure when you go up to bat next time, you adjust. You try to, fix it. So validate and explain to them, how they're feeling, why they're feeling that way. Be a listening ear. Don't be too disconnected. Like kids nowadays, it's so different from when we were growing up.
Yeah.
So we have a tendency to try to, I don't want to say sit on the soapbox. I hate to use that. I can't think of a better term. But to be disconnected. Remember how it was when you were a child and how you felt. Yeah. So just being more in tune, paying attention to their behaviors, know. So if you know that your child is normally the happy-go-lucky type, they want to go out with friends, and now all of a sudden they're isolating themselves and they don't want to talk and they don't, not to necessarily say they're suicidal or anything, but you know that that's not normal behavior, check in. Some other signs. Their grades have dropped in school and they're normally an A/B student, or they tell you, sometimes kids will come out and say, I'm really sad today, or I'm really angry, or listen to that, validate it. Don't be afraid to seek help, parents, don't be afraid. I know, again, in the African American community, there's a stigma, which I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Monique, I feel like that stigma is kind of lifting a little bit. What do you think?
I think so.
And which is a great thing.
I think so. That is
I feel like it's not how it used to be. Like, what? You going to tell your business to, that is kind of, working its way away, which thank God.
Yep. Yes.
And more people are seeking therapy, which is a great thing. And again, your child doesn't have to have this clinical diagnosis. They don't have to check all these boxes. It's okay to reach out, even if it's just a situational thing going on. Yep. Death in the family, or, don't be afraid to reach out for help if you feel like your child might be struggling, or you just need help as a parent. Like, I don't know how to work them through this.
Yeah.
It's okay to reach out. So definitely any change behavior, I would say, look out for that. Don't be afraid to seek therapy or help. Be open to therapy and all that. Another thing that I have, and we also kind of teach our children in the school system, help your children to focus on the things that they can control. Okay. Right? So it's sort of like a bullseye. And this is something a strategy that we, taught our children in the school system. We'll sometimes do during COVID. We would do like videos and send it out to the kids or whatever through our little platform or whatever. But it's like a bullseye, right? So in the outer ring, you have most things that you can't control, right? On the middle ring, you have some things that you may be able to influence. But the bullseye, the red area, the target, the things you can control. So what are some things that you can control? I can control my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions, right?
That's good.
Those are the things that you can control. So I can control how I think about the situation. I can control how I feel. I can control how I react to that feeling. Okay. Right? So that's what we always try to, and that's what I even teach my son. So yeah, it's okay if you're upset, back to the situation, about striking out. But you also can say, you know what, I'm not going to stay stuck on that play. I am going to, the next time, make sure that I watch the ball out of his hand and swing the bat. Whatever it is that you need to adjust or fix, you can fix that. You have the power. So stay focused on the things you can do. So in regards to COVID, let's just use that as an example. many children had a lot of anxiety about that, right? We can't control that we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are getting sick, and those are the things we can't control. But what you can control is make sure you're wearing your mask. Make sure that you wash your hands. Make sure that you social distance. And so those are the only things that we can control. If you're not feeling good, let your parent know, I'm feeling sick, Mom, I might need to go to the doctor. To be prevented. So focus on the things that you can control and that you have more control over instead of the things you can't. And that is a big thing. I mean, even some of us adults can utilize that. That decreases your anxiety. That decreases your stress. That if you can only focus on what I can control, which more than likely is you, you know? So those are some of the things you can look out for and how you can prepare. And some things I would suggest to parents.
So thank you, Dana, for mentioning those things. And I think you even wrapped up some tips that for the parents so they can address those things. So sure. I thank you. But I think one thing I like that you said is definitely ask the children how they're doing. I think sometimes adults get caught up and they think, well, you're a child, you don't have any problems.
Right.
Well, you know, your child still needs to be checked in on.
Yes, for sure.
And you still, please watch out for those signs. Change behavior, change attitudes, sudden changes, you know.
Right.
Children can be moody sometimes, but sudden changes, you know.
And the duration.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah, so, if it's a day or two, or you know the situation, why he's upset, that's different. But if it's over weeks or months, then it's like, okay, you know.
Yeah, something is going on, definitely. So thank you for that. So I'm going to jump into just going ahead and what do you think, or what have you seen? How have children been resilient through all of this that they've faced? How have they been resilient?
So I would say that, and kind of going back to what we were talking about before, even the young children, they're more resilient than what we give them credit for. You know, so we're like, oh, they're babies and da-da-da-da. Sometimes they adjust to change better than us. Right? Because and my sister is also an educator. She's a teacher, whereas I'm a school counselor. But we joke all the time about, you know, how we had these computers. There were teachers that would be they were crying. I had some that were crying because it was a sudden shift. It wasn't gradual. You know, so I understood the stress and the anxiety of having to still teach, but you're on this whole new platform. You have to learn this software. You have to learn how to teach with this software. Technical issues, and if you're not a techie person, like that in itself can be stressful. Whereas the kids, they were typing, they were already in the chat box, they were already, So
they were adjusting
all the time, like, wait, it's us teachers that need to kind of get on board. These kids, they got it, you know? So in that aspect, there were a lot of children, although, you know, we had, you know, some situations that were the opposite. There were a lot of children that actually did well. Good. You know, there were children that loved working online, that liked being at home with their parents, so on the flip side of COVID, it wasn't all negative. You know, there were children that were able to reconnect with, you know, families or parents. You know, we're working 9 to 5. We barely see our kids. You know, when school is in and work is in and sports, and these kids have schedules bigger than ours.
Right.
You barely get to spend time. So think about, now I'm home all day with mom and dad. So there was a flip side to that situation too. It wasn't all negative, and there were some kids that really did thrive and grow. You know, again, there are different types of learners. Some kids did not do well, and academically they might have suffered. But there were some children who did very, very well. They loved it, and they were able to, you know, really learn and excel and grow, and they learned the software, and they, again, did well, and they liked not having to get up and go to school every day, and, you know. So, I mean, for some, we always kind of try to look at the negative, but for some, it was a positive, and again, children they are more resilient than I think what we sometimes as grown people give them credit for.
That is true.
Yeah, like they can adjust to change and adapt quicker than what we may think, or sometimes, especially as being older and stuck in our ways. You know,
that's true.
Children, children definitely can be more flexible and adjust quicker. But there's, you know, it's always a double-edged sword. You know? Some do, some don't. So
definitely true. Well, thank you, Dana, for that. Thank you for sharing what you have shared thus far. I think it is true that, you know, even I guess you saying, you know what, children are resilient. I was saying earlier that children may not have the resilience as adults have because they may not have the understanding of certain things. But it is true what you just said, that, however, children can bounce back quicker sometimes than adults, because adults hold on to things versus children. Okay, it's on to the next, like it's a good day today, so I'm not going to worry too much about what happened yesterday.
Right, and that goes back to what we were talking about before. I think it also depends on how the parents handle it.
It is true.
Because if I'm anxious and I'm depressed and that's going to transfer to my kids.
It definitely
But if I find a way to still make it, in an abnormal situation, make it normal. We still get up. We still brush our teeth. We still put on our uniform shirts. Mm-hmm. We still go to the computer. You still expected to learn this work like you were in school. After school, we still get our snack. We can go outside and play after you're done.
That's true.
So we don't make it like, oh my God, it's stressful. And you try to continue to keep it as normal as possible. And again, everybody didn't have that understanding or that way of dealing with it. Everyone's situation was different. I get that. But, I think, how parents handled the situation also played a big impact on how students were able to handle it as well. So,
thank you. Mm-hmm. That is true. Definitely, our parents definitely have an impact on how their children will handle things. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that reminder. Hopefully, the adults are paying attention that your behavior also affects your child's behavior. Sure. So let me just ask Dana before we're wrapping up soon. And what resources, if any, do you feel are in place during these COVID or post-COVID times for the children?
So always, use the resources that are around you and right at your fingertips. Your child's pediatrician is the first, line. If you notice that your child, again, like we were talking about earlier, changed behavior for long periods of time, take them to your child's pediatrician and they can do an initial assessment and they will give you referrals or things of that nature to give you some other resources. Myself, school counselors. They're in every school building has at least one school counselor. Yes. So, reach out to the schools and ask for the help. Parents, don't be ashamed to ask for help. Don't feel like you have to know it all or do it all by yourself. I'm a parent myself. You know what I mean? So use the resources that are around you to provide you with either those additional referrals or resources. We also have school social workers who can provide parents with additional resources for like insurance purposes or whatever. So use the resources that are right at your fingertips and don't be afraid to ask for that help if you need it. So
great.
Those are some just immediate resources. Of course, if you're in your community and you have access, or through friends. So if they have referrals, if they've taken their children to see a particular therapist or whatever. So don't be afraid to ask for help and open and ask for it because you never know what resources people have or can offer you. So
definitely. I thank you for that. So like Dana said, maybe, you may not be aware of your resources there, but it is right there. But, first thing I'm going to say, I guess, just share it.
Yes.
Don't keep it to yourself.
That's the biggest thing.
Just talk to somebody. You never know who in your circle just knows someone that knows someone else that can get you that help. Your pediatrician, the school social worker, someone at your church if you're involved in a church or your religious organization. One other place I'm going to say you can go to www.childwelfare.gov.
Okay, that's great.
And childwelfare.gov has some behavioral health and wellness resources for children and families. Okay. You can see what that may have for you and what in your area is near you. One other thing you can do is call your insurance company. Your insurance company as well can give you some resources. Just speak to the behavioral health team and you never know. They just might link you to something that you may need. So I hope, and of course we have online, you can share. Listen, another thing, social media. Yeah. You share it on social media, somebody will give you something.
For sure.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Dana, if I could ask you, what words of encouragement can you give parents during these times regarding how they can parent through these challenges?
So, again, as I shared, I'm a parent myself, right? I would say that you're doing the best that you know how, right? Everybody does the best that they know how to do, Show yourself some grace. That's my biggest thing. And I even have to do this to myself because there's no handbook. There's no guide. There's no anything that tells you how to be the perfect parent. Let go of that assumption that you have to be the perfect parent. You know what I'm saying? Let go of that assumption. You're going to make mistakes. It's okay. I think, of course, we're doing the best we know how to do. If you parent out of love, You're there for your children. You're doing the best that you know how. Trust me, your child, they're going to know it. They're going to know it. They're going to grow up. They're going to appreciate you for it. Again, we're all doing the best that we know how to do. So again, show yourself some grace and don't feel like you have to know it all or do it in isolation. Use your village. Use your village, because the village is there for a reason, to help you, to help your children. Another word of encouragement that I would say, back to what the caller was saying, and I don't know if it's a word of encouragement, maybe just some more advice, practice self-care. Because I know too, you tend to get lost. You get lost in the regular daily schedules and taking care of children and taking care of home and working and schedules. But you cannot be the absolute best parent that you know how to be if you're not the best you, or at least trying to be the best you. You know what I mean? So, try to take some time for yourself and don't feel guilty about it. Because I know there are times where I'm like, oh man, should I do this or whatever? Yes.
Yep, exactly. Yes, you should.
As you should, yes. So go get that pedicure. Yes. Go get your hair done. Go buy that outfit.
Yes.
You work hard.
Yes.
You do the best that you know how to do. But there is no handbook for it. Show yourself some grace. Just like we tend to be so much more graceful with other people than we are with ourselves, right?
Right.
So relax. It's okay. Do the best that you know how to do. Don't feel like you have to do it alone. Those are my words, for sure.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, Dana, thank you for being a guest on the Healing Podcast. It has been wonderful. I think you have shared some wonderful information with our listeners. And listen, if you're out there, I hope this has helped you. But even if you're a person listening and maybe you don't have children, but I'm sure you probably know somebody that does have children, please share this episode or give them some information here, because I believe it will help someone.
Yes.
So let me go ahead as I close out this episode. Let me leave you with this. A child's mental health is just as important as their physical health.
For sure.
And deserves the same quality of support. Yeah. That is by Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge. So I thank you guys for tuning into the Healing Podcast. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
And just quickly, I want to say...
sorry, let me go back. Dana has something.
No, just quickly, I just want to share my webpage with you all.
Oh, sure. I'm so sorry, Dana. Go ahead and share your resource.
Yeah, I just want to share my webpage. It's Gambles, GAMBLES, counselingcorner.org. And it has my contact information, some resources and stuff like that. I'm still building it, but ways to reach out to me and contact me as well. And again, I do mental health therapy as well. So
okay, that was Gambles.
Yes, with
counseling.
an S. GAMBLES. Counseling.
Okay.
Corner.org.
Well, thank you, Dan. I'm so sorry. I was closing out the episode and I didn't give you a moment to give share your resource. Well, please listen. If you're looking for counseling resources and you're in the Georgia area, please go ahead to Dana's website and see if she can help you with some therapeutic services.
And I'm working on telemental health too.
And telemental. Yeah, so listen, if you can't make it to her,
right,
you have access. So thank you, Dana, for what you do.
Yes,
thank you for being a professional.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful. I loved it. Thank you so much. All right.
Well, thank you so much. And to our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.